morning, everyone. Welcome to the, getting a preview there, the 28th weekly IAB webinar. Thank you for joining us. So hopefully some of you have been to some of our other webinars. We've got a fun one this morning. So we're going to be talking all things real estate, moving, home, renovations, and everything in between. So we've got some great research, some great stories, and some brilliant talent to sort of share what's going on in the market now, and I guess a little bit of future gazing as well of what we're expecting sort of coming up in the future. So let me introduce you to everyone you're going to hear from today. So for those who don't know me, I'm Gai Le Roy, and I'm incredibly lucky to be the CEO of the IAB of Australia. We're going to start off with some slides from me on just some research on consumer behaviour on real estate sites, a little bit about the ad market, and then we're going to go into some new research that's come from Honeycomb Strategy and REA Group on the moving consumer. I haven't seen a lot of this, so I'm incredibly excited to see it. So looking at, I guess, the nature of moving, consumer motivations, behaviour, etc. And then we're going to go into a panel where we're going to be joined by Keith Murray from Bunnings. I'm sure Bunnings has sort of been top of mind for the last 6 months, if not longer, but particularly during COVID period. And Sarah James from Initiative in Melbourne. Actually, everyone, apart from me, I think is in Melbourne on this panel. So thank you all for all the hard yards you're doing in every which way. And also Paul Bates, commonly known as Batesy. We'll probably end up using that just in case you're not sure who we're talking about from the REA group. So we'll get into it. Please feel free to pop questions into the Q&A box. Love to hear from you, hear what you want to hear about, or even in the chat if you want to send a message to anyone. Just please feel free to stay engaged and send through your questions. All right, let me kick off with some data that we have gathered for you to give you a bit of, I guess, context of what's happening in the market. Those of you who have joined our other webinars, we've been looking a lot at different categories and the sort of change in consumer behaviour online in terms of digital media. And we've just pulled out some of the categories that have seen solid growth. This is looking at data from January right through to August. So there'll be a lot of peaks and troughs during the months in these different areas. But this is looking at consumers going to, Australian consumers going to different websites or apps in these categories. Real estate we'll talk about in detail today. Food and cooking obviously goes hand in hand with that home experience, and we've seen some incredibly huge growth in sort of March, April, particularly in that sort of shopping and home side of cooking from scratch. But we've continued to see strong growth, particularly in that sort of home delivery and pre-prepared meal kits area. Home and garden, which would talk very much to a lot of the stuff that Keith will talk about later, but you know, a lot of time, energy and money being spent in that area. And just another one, I guess, that goes along with the homes to make it complete for those who have it, a real extra emphasis and energy either on existing pets or, as we've seen in the market, people buying new pets, adopting new pets, whatever the friendlier term there is. That sounded a bit too consumerish. So lots of I guess uplift in activity there and opportunities for both media organisations and marketers to tap into what's going on. Sort of a week by week chart of real estate sites. So this is the overall category, whether it be the classified sites or information sites. And you can see it's a little bit bumpy, but overall, you know, incredibly solid growth of people looking at different areas. We'll talk about what they're looking at later on, but you know, that real mix of people seeing what their market, their value, their property is worth, looking at different opportunities. Still a fair bit of daydreaming going on. I know I'm constantly looking at sort of the Byron market to see how ridiculously overheated it is and if I can ever get in my lifetime. So lots of different activity within those real estate sites and apps over that period. Thought this was just an interesting split in terms of when you're designing a consumer experience, whether that be ad or from a retail point of view, just the different types of devices that people are using. Real estate has always skewed very, very mobile. But if you see sort of, I guess, the more detailed research, inspiration area in the home and garden side of things, you're still seeing a lot of sort of desktop activity there. We've actually seen over the last, I guess, 4 or 5 months, the first time we've skewed back a little bit more to laptop and desktop overall. First time we've seen faster growth in that area than mobile for probably about the last 8-9 years, just as people are working from home and on the go less. So that will start to come back to normal, but we're still seeing, I guess, very different behaviour in terms of designing experiences there. Just a little bit of demo backgrounds on what's going on, and for the real estate sites and apps, you can see sort of half the time being spent on those sites, really in that core, I guess, home buying, home selling type demographic, 25 to 44. You will see a different sort of spread in terms of reach, but in terms of time, people spending that deep amount of time. And then the sort of the broader sort of home and garden type apps being sort of more equally spread across different age groups. In terms of revenue, we track 2 different types of revenue where the real estate market sits from the IAB working with PwC, and one is in the listings type revenue, so the actual listings on the site, not the display type revenue, and this looking at quarterly data, and you can see obviously that June quarter data having a big drop, and we saw this across all the different classified markets. Incredibly important indicator for overall economic health of Australia. We're just finalising September quarter data at the moment, so we're expecting that to come back up, but obviously there's still a little, quite a lot of uncertainty in that area. The other type of activity that we look at is the sort of the broader, what probably most of the people on the call sort of think about in terms of advertising, display, whether that be video, audio, etc., in the digital market. And real estate as an advertiser category has definitely dropped back over the last quarter and probably over the last 6 months. And a lot of that's development dollars, actual, rather than on real estate sites, real estate development type dollars, and that has dropped back. But there's some really interesting other categories that are coming through that are in this sort of related area. So an increase in that sort of home products and utilities area, both as people sort of do stuff around the home, but also start looking for better deals or different deals with their energy providers. A lot of people have been taking stock of everything and using this time to hunt around for better deals. We've seen that in the insurance area as well, particularly with home insurance and dare I say it, life insurance. But you can see those different categories sort of coming in and out, and opportunities and different ways of reaching these consumers. And as we've seen today, we released, along with Nielsen, the September ratings data, with still a 38% increase in time overall for digital media year on year. So we've seen those categories changing, but at that net level, 38% in time. So lots of interesting opportunities, particularly for marketers if their competitors aren't spending to get in there and grab some share of voice. I've grabbed a few slides that I'm lucky enough the REA guys shared with me. They're doing a regular sort of pulse check on what's going on from a consumer point of view and people looking at house hunting. And I haven't stolen all their slides. I'm sure they can share the larger piece, but I thought it was just important to look at, I guess, how people are feeling about the property market. And this is looking at people who are looking to sell. And the last wave that they've done there in sort of mid to late September, you can see a huge increase on that left-hand side of people who own properties who are now starting to think about selling again. So quite subdued feelings earlier in lockdown and then coming back quite strongly at September. Look, I would caveat all the data that we've seen so far is it's very state dependent. So, the devil's in the detail here, but this is at a national level. You're seeing particularly the states that are out of lockdown and somewhat back to normal, seeing that confidence and that people dipping their toes back in the water. This one's remained a little bit more static in terms of good time to buy. And I guess there's different ways that the buyers will be looking at this market, but that's stayed very flat, whether people are looking for bargains or it's a good time for them personally. But I guess that buy market being quite solid, and now as new inventory comes onto the market, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next few months. Last one for me, and this one I found really interesting because I think it's got ramifications for so many different types of businesses, and I guess that broader sort of macroeconomic story as well, and socioeconomic, societal type influence as well. And this is people suddenly looking at being open to moving out of area. I know we've all seen a lot of people during COVID move to holiday homes or moving back to parents if they're younger people, and a real shuffling of people around different areas. But this longer term idea of we can live in a different place than we possibly thought we had to live in or currently living in. So I think this could have interesting impacts for regional areas, how we work, a whole lot of different areas. So I'm really fascinated to see if that's just, some of it's just a whimsy in terms of, you know, that freedom of I can move anywhere, or if it's a longer term ongoing trend. So something I'll look forward to seeing in future studies from the REA guys. So that's it from me. So I'm going to hand over to Kat and John, who are going to take you through the movers research. And as I said, please throw questions through, and I'll hand it over to you guys. Kat, if you want to just take over the screen. Oops.
Thank you. Sorry, that was a lovely segue into movers. So what John and I will take you through is a really large piece of research that REA undertook to understand how consumers move between one property to the next. As Gai mentioned, why people move and how they move has really big implications in terms of how we live as a society, how brands choose to target their consumers. So that's why we did this research. I'm glad to be joined by John. So John is the Managing Director at Honeycomb. So at REA, when we do really big foundational pieces of research such as this, it's important for us to partner with an independent agency. That way we know that when we're talking to market, what we present is a really unbiased and accurate view of what's happening. So in terms of realestate.com.au, so no doubt we are the leaders when it comes to real estate. We have 12 million Australians who come to our site to either look to purchase a property, maybe they're looking to rent or sell, or as Gai mentioned as well, a lot of people on our site who are perhaps dreaming about their next property. So is it that mansion in Toorak if you're in Melbourne, or is it something a little bit more realistic? But either way, we get a lot of eyeballs on site and close to 2 million visitors a day. So what that has meant is that we have a really great understanding of what people are looking for in their property journey. So in particular, how people choose to sell, what it is they're looking for when they're buying a property or perhaps renting. However, what we found is that there was a gap in understanding of what happens once you have actually found that home. What are the steps that you go through when you move from one property to the next? So that's what John and I will take you through today. So very much about that moving stage. So you've found a property, what happens next? And that's the core of what the movers research is about. Why this is important is we know that every year over 1 million Australians move. Moving is a really key trigger for taking up services which at other times of the year are set and forget. So if you think about something like electricity, unless there's a really significant service failure, perhaps the price is, increased unrealistically, that's the only other times you tend to really revisit these categories. So moving affords us that opportunity to try and intercept a particular brand decision. So you are forced to contact your provider to cancel a service and start it at a new address. So that's a really great point in time for us to try and intervene and get them to consider an alternative brand choice. So understanding the mindset that movers go through is not only important from that brand point of view, but also for us, it allows us to, develop the products and the support that consumers might need on that mover journey. What I'll take you through now is a quick video that will give you an overview of how the research was conducted and some of the key highlights. Clearly, this is a really, really large piece of research. We can't go through everything today. John and I will talk through some of the key highlights. The video will also capture a few more, but it'll just give you a flavour for what we've uncovered with the movers research. Hopefully enjoyed those catchy tunes and getting a flavour for the research. So jumping into some of the insights now, I guess the core of what we wanted to understand is what the mover journey looks like. And what we found is that across the board, it tended to fall into 4 key categories. So getting ahead is very much about securing the next property. So whether it's putting in an offer or getting in a rental application and getting it accepted. Preparing then takes on average about 5 weeks for buyers, and preparing is you have the home, but you can't quite move in yet. Then we get to the moving stages, which, as that video highlights, was really interesting because often I guess you hear moving day, but for the most part, people take 2 whole weeks to move between properties. So it's quite an extended period of time where they perhaps have ownership of 2 properties that they're needing to travel between. And the final stage is settling in. So that's what you need to do to make the house start to feel like a home. And for us, that mover journey ends, at which point you can sit back and reflect and go, yep, it's now my home. So that's effectively the mover journey. And what we found is that that takes 5 months. For renters, they follow a very similar journey, but they do everything in a much shorter time frame, meaning that they take about 2.5 months to move through that journey. So for us, that gave us a really good understanding of effectively, you've got 5 months in which you need to consider people as a mover, and how you communicate with them needs to reflect that they are in fact moving. Then we get, I guess, to the nitty gritty. So when do they actually start to think about the new connections and services that they may need in their new home? This is one of the really interesting findings here, because what we were able to determine is that people start to think about their new services or the new providers that they may need for their home as a bundle. So here we're looking at the electricity, gas, internet, and insurances. And at what point people start to think. This isn't when you actively switch connections, it's just you start to think about it. And what we can see here, so on this line, this is moving day. If you go a step back, that's 1 week before the move, and a step forward, that's 1 week after the move. And you can see here, for most people, they're really starting to think about that connections the week of the move or the week after the move. So around 70% of people, for example, with electricity only start to think about electricity in that time frame. So it starts to paint a picture that, you know, it's a really condensed time frame. They've got a lot going on and they're considering everything as one set. This is really different to what we saw 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, we did a smaller study which covered some of these things. And you can see when it comes to electricity, 5 years ago, they were starting to think about electricity 2 months ahead of the move, and they were doing it for a 2-week period. So a much longer period of time that you're thinking about the right provider. You perhaps needed to reach out to put the groundwork to set it up, and thinking it 2 weeks ahead of time. Now, reflective, I guess, of what's happening with the whole instant economy, everything has shrunk down to that week before the move. And this was really similar to what we saw with renters as well. So same as with the journey, renters will do it at the last minute, but it's much more condensed. So it was about 80% of people, of renters, who are leaving these decisions to the week before the move. And now John will take you through how the movers choose between providers.
Thanks, Kat. And I mean, that's a fantastic and very convenient question. And I'm sure if I asked everyone in the webinar, if you've ever moved in your lifetime, I would imagine a lot of virtual hands raised up in the air. And I guess when it comes to the move, given how condensed the time frame is and how last minute people often start to think about providers, the first thing you tend to do is jump online. So not surprisingly, the most common sources of information that people use when researching is online sources. So what we're looking at here are a breakdown of the different key verticals that we looked at. So gas and electricity, internet, and insurance. And what we can see on the far left, the top 3 across all of them are things like provider websites, price comparison sites in Google. And then further on down on the right-hand side, we do see some of the more social media type platforms as well. The key distinction here is this is when people are actively researching. So things like social media ads and whatnot tend to be a little bit more passive and tend to be more of a long-term play. But for most movers, they use on average 2 to 3 different sources of information to help give them the information they need to choose a provider. What we can see at the bottom is movers' perspective on what the most effective sources of information. And if we look at the Holy Trinity, which is the first 3 on the left-hand side, we can see that there's some slight variances between those top verticals that we focused on. A good example is with internet, for instance. Google's a good place to start and the most effective because that's where a lot of research happens. Whereas if you compare to something like gas and electricity, it's the price comparison websites that are seen as the most effective. And I guess if we think about all these key verticals in more detail, there's a lot of price comparisons in the context of gas and electricity. So not surprising then that's one of the key prominent things. And then I guess with insurance, given how complex insurance is, which has like inclusions and whatnot, going direct to provider websites are seen by most to be one of the most effective platforms. Now, I spoke about active research before, and I guess I mean that in a way that where someone actually goes to compare different offerings. What is interesting though is that not everyone does it, and I found that to be a really interesting insight. Roughly 50% of buyers actively research prior to moving, and only 1/3 of renters do it. And even those that do actually research only spend roughly 2 hours maximum doing the research. So given it's a condensed time frame, they don't really have much time to go in depth in their research. The fact that the proportion of people that research was so low was really fascinating. So we wanted to look into it in more detail. And the reason why the most people that don't research is primarily driven by the fact that they end up staying with their existing provider. And this starts to really sneak in that story of, well, there's so many other factors in play. You're managing the logistics of the move. More often than not, the preference is to stick with the provider and have that convenience. So I guess the key consideration with that is if people don't have much time spent researching, brands that aren't their existing provider really need to get in as early as possible. So if we're trying to influence them at the point of move, and that's the first time they've been exposed to the brand, that's probably a little bit too late. Whereas building that brand, building that saliency so that when they get to the point of the move, that the name is out there and they at least have you in the consideration set, that's really fundamental. Now, you started to hear that there was a bit of a story around convenience. Like I said, there's so many factors at play when moving, and there's such a condensed time frame to actually organize the logistics that, not surprisingly, one of the key reasons people choose a provider, and typically the provider they're with, is convenience. But cost also plays a role. And obviously there are so many other factors at play, things like brand, product offering, whether they're an Australian brand or whatnot. But the key factors that most movers ended up choosing between their providers was the battle between cost and convenience. And looking across some of these key verticals, you can see it's a very tight battle, but more often than not, it's convenience that wins, especially for those insurances where you can see there's a really big gap between convenience and cost. So given the battle there, more often than not, convenience really does win. And again, we spoke about it before, there's so many other factors in play. The last thing movers need to worry about is organizing the logistics of having to switch to another provider, because there's a lot of admin required there. So when we asked, well, did you stay with your previous provider? So the provider you were with in your old home, and did you stay with them in the new home? At least 60% across the key verticals ended up staying with the key provider. And Kat mentioned it before, unless you've had like a negative experience with your provider, most are happy to stay with them. There is a sense that they might do the research elsewhere. They'll jump on the phone to talk to their existing provider and go, hey, I've seen better rates elsewhere. Can you compete or give me something better? If they do that, the preference is to stay. If there's a bit more friction, then that's when they tend to trigger a switching behavior. Now, given that convenience is such a strong role to play, I'm sure you're all asking me, but John, surely all is not lost. Like, what if I want to grow my share of the movers market? And I would say that is a fantastic question. When looking at, so we looked at whether they stayed with their provider going from home A to point B. We also asked whether at this point in time, they're still with their provider, because we actually spoke to people who had moved within 12 months. And what was interesting was we did start to see a small proportion of people in electricity, gas, and internet. They weren't actually with their provider anymore that they brought to their new home. And some of the key reasons, not surprisingly, are things like cheaper deal, better rates, better data packages. So we do start to see that leaky bucket. And I guess the sentiment with that is that there are, again, so many things to focus on during the move. Convenience is a factor to stay with their provider, but that's not necessarily where the journey ends. Some people might just delay the research or delay the switch to when they actually have more time to dedicate to it. And this is especially prominent with insurance. Insurance is such an easy thing to move from one house to the other. You literally update the address. So for most people, when they move, that's all they do. What we found though, as part of the research, is that between 10 and 12% are no longer with the provider that they moved to their new home. And even 1 in 5 claimed that they're likely to switch within the next 12 months. Again, for cost reasons or to find better coverage. Now, the good news, and we did see that with gas and electricity, that there was only quite a small percentage of people, 6 or 7%, that actually moved away from the original provider. I guess the context with that is that we're talking about like-for-like product offerings. The great news is that if we're talking about quite a differentiated product, and a good example of this is green energy, the consideration and the likelihood to switch is much higher. So in the context of buyers, more than a third claim that they were likely to switch in the next 12 months, and even a quarter of renters. And you might ask, well, how do renters get green energy? It's looking for renewable sources of energy. So things like PowerShop, for instance, now give you the option to go, well, do I want to be pulling my energy or paying for my energy from a green source or not? So this is a really interesting point when talking about triggering for switches, because if the existing provider doesn't provide a differentiating product, something like green energy, that's where there's definitely an opportunity for competing products to jump in. The other thing that we found was super interesting is that you might guess that green energy is only for people with the green thumb, or people who want to do good. And yes, that is definitely the case. 80% of people like the idea that green energy is good for the environment. But we do see a really high proportion of people also talk about green energy as a venue for saving money. And all of you Tesla owners out there, I'm sure you realize how much money you're saving not paying for petrol at the moment, or the fact that you have to leave the home, so you're saving time as well. Now, this is a little bit of a lead in, but obviously we've got Keith from Bunnings involved. And one of the key things with moving home is the renovation, the cleanup, Kat said one of the key components of the move and when the move is finished is when you make it feel like a home. And more often than not, redecorating and renovating is a key component that plays a role in feeling settled and feeling at home. So the key question, I guess, and I'm sure this is a battle that we've all fought when we're moving, is should I renovate before I move in or should I renovate after? And if we're looking at the mover market as a whole, what we found really fascinating was only 1/3 of people renovated before they moved. If we talk about what are the key reasons for that, what we actually found was that the people who renovated before they moved in wanted to change the house to their liking so that it feels like a home as soon as they move in. They're conscious that they just want to get it over and done with. And a lot of people from experience said that it was harder to renovate after moving. There were people that are living in their home for 10 years and they're like, I intended to do it. I still haven't. It's still the shithole that it was originally, pardon the French. For the other 2/3 of people that renovate after they move in, the key driver for that is they really want to live in it first, get a feel for it before making a decision on how to renovate it. This is a really good example of prioritizing what needs renovating versus what's okay to live with. Now, we talk about this whole angle of renovating as a reason for making the home feel like a home. So when we're looking at budgeting, renovating can definitely be an emotional journey. And so it's not surprising that when we look at what type of activities during the moving process blew over budget, renovations was the key one that came up there. So 44% of people who renovated said that they blew way over budget. And it's the biggest one of all the different activities that can happen during the move. Just to re-emphasize just how emotional renovation can be, the key driver for renovating is to actually make it suited to my style, which is what we kind of classify as more of an emotional driver. So roughly 50% of people that renovate do it to suit their style. Some of the more functional components, so wanting to upgrade the home or just making it livable, they're definitely up there, but I found it really fascinating that the key driver was an emotional one. Now, some of the key types of renovations that occur are not structural, not surprisingly. They're more of the cosmetic changes. So changing window furnishings is the key one that happens across the board. So 47% of people. And if we think about blowing over budget, that's an easy one. I personally moved in the last 6 months and made the decision to move from like those cheap Venetians to like these glorious S-curve blinds. And then in the bathrooms, you've got your plantation shutters. All of a sudden you've blown over the budget because you think things look better. Obviously painting is a big one as well, because sometimes you need to touch it up or just give it a personal touch. A lot of these renovations aren't just limited to old houses, but even new homes too, just to make it feel like your own. Now, not all of us are interior designers at heart. So not surprisingly, roughly 50% of renovators do a lot of research to get some inspiration for home decor and styling. Primarily driven by owners more than renters. So when we look where people go to for sources of information and inspiration, not surprisingly, you've got your social media up the top, Instagram, Pinterest. You do have your YouTubes there as well and your showrooms, probably not at the moment, but when we could go outside, people go into the showrooms primarily to look at how things go together. So rather than looking at individual items, it's more about going, well, how can I connect this to that? And obviously, Kat mentioned it too, but jumping on places like realestate.com can be another good source of inspiration too. Desperate Housewives of Turak is a perfect example. And then just as a convenient lead into the next section, one of the key things I wanted to highlight was, well, what are some of the top brands considered during the renovation? And not surprisingly for all of us, Bunnings is the most popular one there by a mile. So 63% of people considered Bunnings during the reno. Yeah, thank you very much. Like Kat said, there's a lot of content to cover, but yeah, please feel free to reach out if you wanted to find out more.
Thank you so much, John and Kat. All right, we're gonna, yes, clap for you guys. We're gonna get into the panel now. And on that lovely Bunnings note, Keith, let's kick off with you. I can only imagine the 6 months that you've had for you and your team. Imagine there were challenges with supply, changes in the way you could get materials to consumers. having to update messaging, all of it. Firstly, how have you coped? And then I guess for this audience, what over the last 6 months have you had to do in terms of changing those consumer message, whether it be in store or through external advertising?
Yeah, thanks, Gai. Look, it has been an incredible period, really. And it's probably for everyone quite unimaginable that we couldn't have imagined that we'd be going through. I think the key focus for us has always been around the safety of team and customers. So we wanted to keep team members working as an obvious thing. Like, that was a big risk. We'd seen some of what was happening around other parts of the world in our industry where people weren't, but we also wanted them to be safe, happy, and we wanted customers to feel really comfortable when they come to Bunnings. I think for us, the ability to sort of really be quite agile and not get bogged down with process was one of our things that we did to sort of cope and be able to move quickly. Another big thing for us was just important to make sure that our team were really well educated on what was going on. I mean, different sources and different, depending on what you read or where you heard, there was lots of rumors about what might be happening. And so we're really fortunate. We use Workplace as a sort of enterprise social network, and we use Workplace as a way to really consistently communicate to the team. So whether it be as soon as there was an announcement, one of our leadership team, usually our managing director, Mike Schneider, would quickly grab his phone, do a little post, do a little video, explain what it meant for us, and then post that up onto Workplace. And then we started a regular cycle of comms and Q&As. And in fact, there's one going on as we speak for all of our store teams, a Q&A going on at the moment with a couple of our senior leadership team. And I think just looking after the team as well. I mean, just as recently as the last couple of weeks, we brought all of our understanding what the team are going through. We brought all of our Melbourne team dinner to sort of say thanks to to those 11,000 people that have sort of had this extended period of lockdown. That's what we did around our team. I think around the messaging, I mean, fundamentally, we wanted to make sure that our brand and how we communicate to customers fundamentally stayed the same. But there's definitely a shift from product focus through to, I guess, that safety and shop safely message. You know, we wanted to still remain, one of the strengths of us has been the consistency of message, and we wanted to make sure that that consistency still remained as we walk through. I think we wanted to, all of our comms, both internally and externally, needed to be aligned, probably more so than ever. And so it was a really consistent message across, whether it was going to our team or to customers through media. You know, how we went to market did slightly change because we had a little bit less time for us to be able to turn over assets. So no, it wasn't necessarily the ability to shoot really bespoke content. And if you think about Victoria right now, we can't, you know, one of the signature parts of us is our team in our store, and we can't get out into our stores to be able to record that. And then lastly, I'd sort of say we had a really strong focus on people staying. We know that there's a direct link between being active around things at home and being mentally healthy as well. And so we really wanted to make sure that we gave people the opportunity to do things themselves and with their families to really stay active and to stay fresh and to keep a bit of to make sure that people could you know, while we're stuck, spending more time at home, really enjoy that and to help with mental health. Sorry, I clearly passionate, could talk for a while about
it. No, that's fantastic. And I like that mental health angle, that just, you know, making sure that people do stay positive and have some sort of control, I guess, over their environment if they're feeling trapped. I might bring Sarah in at this point because it sounds like you've got the sort of the vision there, and I'm sure initiative had to, you know, bring a lot of this to life quite quickly and scramble to get both, I guess, those consumer messages mixed with your match to your internal message as well. Sarah, how has that journey gone?
It's been a really big 6 months. I think we've really had to adjust our ways of working together. And I think that where that's really come to life has been, you know, from every level of the organisation, ensuring that there's a really clear path of communication. You know, obviously we've had to amend and edit our media plans as the time's gone on based on the government announcements. And so what has that meant is like really last minute changes to, you know, channel, but also to creative messaging. We have a online hub for that, for all our, where all the creative lives, as that's really helped to expedite that process. And I think just, you know, really evolving those ways of working has been a really positive shift in the relationship as well.
Yeah, I feel exhausted just listening to both of you. It's really interesting. A quick question came through to Keith. I'll give it to him now because it's sort of linked on to what we were talking about, and it's a complimentary one for Bunnings in terms of, and I'm imagining I sort of know where the answer is going to go, but your staff being so knowledgeable normally, how have you been able to keep that training and that knowledge? Is it through the sort of the workplace portal, or has there been a different approach to keeping the team from a product knowledge point of view up to date?
Yeah, definitely the workplace portal. We actually were using it significantly before, particularly around product and supplier training. So we've used online digital as a way to train our team significantly. Obviously, that's had to step up, and we probably had a period where we had to pause a little bit as well to really make sure that our focus was on making sure that we had, you know, our environments right, our social distancing measures right, the messaging and making sure our team were right in store. But definitely we've used, in order to keep the team up to date with what's happening with not being able to have suppliers go out and conduct training, we've used workplace for sure.
Yeah, great. I think there'll be a lot of change in the whole education space, whether it be work or schooling over the next few months. Batesy, love the movers research, and I mean, there's so many different categories and different pieces, like different rabbit holes I could go down with this one. But how have you used this? I guess real estate as a media property is constantly reinventing, trying to make sure you're useful for consumers. How are you using this, I guess, firstly from a consumer point of view, so your content, and then I guess working with clients to make sure that they can understand the research and use it with their own messaging?
Yeah, thanks, Gai. And just a quick shout out to say thanks to John and Kat for delivering that research. And again, if you do want more, reach out to us. But look, I guess, Gai, from an internal perspective, right, the movers research has really helped us thinking in how we shape and build new products. The biggest piece of research we've ever commissioned in media. I've been with the business almost 3 years now, so really great that the business internally supported it and put the money into it to actually get us the data and all of the research that it's provided. I suppose its depth of content has really meant that we can comprehensively understand all those parts of the buyer journey, or the property journey, I should say, and that talks to whether it's buy, sell, rent, or renovate, and it allows us to see that not all property journeys are the same. There are some commonalities, but there's also some differences, down to individual consumers with demographics, obviously, and whether they're buying, selling, or renting, or renovating, obviously. It's enabled us to sort of, with the research, deliver new product to advertisers, and has meant that brands are now able to tap into the research and working with us to really understand consumers exactly at that right time, ensuring that trial and consideration is there. John mentioned before around, you might think as a brand that we want to reach the audience at this point, 2 weeks before the move or that week before. In actual fact, in order to move the consumer into that sales funnel better, it's actually that longer period or that longer lead time we want to actually get the brand messaging in front of our consumers. So it's a really exciting piece. The other point I'd mention is it's enabled us to sort of develop new product, and one we have worked on at the moment, which is kind of in soft launch, is our movers checklist. And that's been really tailored to provide utility to our viewers during what's seen as, or can be, quite stressful phases of moving home, to help complement the consumer experience. As you know, the consumer experience is an incredibly important part of what we do at realestate.com.au. So it's really helped not only benefit the media side of our business, but also that consumer side as well.
Fantastic. I was surprised by how low word of mouth was there, which I guess is good for us as media businesses, but I thought that would have been higher up the list, particularly for a lot of that utility change. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
One, I guess, for Sarah and Keith on probably in the back of as well. So Sarah, you're working with a range of different clients in different verticals. Obviously Bunnings has probably taken a lot of your time, but are you seeing other areas or other verticals that have, I guess, moved as quickly? And what's the secret sauce? What's the, Keith talked to the agility of having workplace. What's the secret sauce in clients that have, I guess, transitioned quite well over the period, and those that have struggled a bit more?
Thanks, Gai. It's been an interesting time. Not only do we have Bunnings as a wonderful client, but we also have other retailers such as Specsavers and Officeworks. So you can imagine with Officeworks, they had to go through a huge amount of change in terms of messaging as people were trying to get their home offices sorted out. but they're much like Specsavers, where the stores were opening, stores were closing. How do we just isolate, non-Victoria? So it's the secret sauce in that case, in terms of retailers, it's really been, open communication, collaboration, and agility. Like, we just have to move really fast, just as those messages have come in. But not only the retailers, we also look after Swinburne. So, we're obviously doing the planning around their open day. So they couldn't have an open day, obviously. So we helped them launch Swintopia, which was their virtual open day. And they had incredible results. They had, uplift of like 80% of people who actually had pre-registered for the day. And they saw some really, really great engagement for that. The final point I'd love to share is that also the industry super funds. So we look after 7 of those. So it's been an incredibly interesting time for them, especially with early release super. A lot of these organisations didn't even have the processes to make that happen. So their businesses had to, move really fast to get that back end sorted, to get that, early release super scheme back into the hands of those that wanted it. So I think the first time for the industry super funds, they've had a moment in time where everyone is really aware of their superannuation. So what that's meaning is, just trying to push out as much broadcast as possible, trying to just get as much reach out in market as possible to capitalise on that moment in time.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. I was too busy trying to tell people, don't take super out, keep it in there. Yeah,
absolutely. It's terrifying.
I guess with those retail clients, including Bunnings, the e-commerce element has just gone crazy over the last 6 months. And I might jump to a question I've sort of got at the end, because I think it's a really important topic. I like what Bunnings have done with a really hybrid model of that, order and collect. And then we've got other people who've gone completely e-commerce. Sarah, first for you, I guess, what are you imagining will stick next year? Like, have we, consumers going to go back? Is it going to be mixed models? When you're planning for next year, because it's quite different in the way you advertise, performance versus brand, call to action, etc. What's Initiative thinking about in terms of next year for all your retail clients?
It's a great question. I don't know if I have the answer, which is 100%, because the market is just so dynamic at the moment. In terms of the way that we're planning, a lot of our clients would plan it, the full 12-month laydown. Now we're doing very much quarterly planning, because we're just not aware of what's going to happen. I think if we think around consumer trends, I mean, even using a sample of one here, the amount, even I used to spend time with e-commerce sites, the amount that's just become really intuitive now. It's really natural. What do I need? Jump online and buy it. So I do think we'll see that shift. I think what it has meant for a lot of clients is the acceleration of e-commerce. So, we can't get 100% right. Let's just get it in. Let's optimize. Let's see how people are buying online and optimize as we go, because there just hasn't been the time to, slow down and try and get everything perfect. So time will tell, but it is a fascinating market. And, I think the positive thing is it's keeping everyone interested. It's keeping everyone really engaged, because you really don't know, what's going to be happening next week. I mean, obviously for Melbourne, we're waiting with bated breath for Sunday. But, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And, moving into next year, hopefully, we're in a recession. Hopefully the market will start to bounce. But time will tell. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, it's up to, I guess, us as an advertising industry, when we looked at those initial charts of the listings versus the display side of things, we're the people who have to encourage growth and
absolutely
really drive those messages. Keith, from your point of view, from your change in, I guess, to e-commerce, to click and collect, what stays, what goes, what have you been surprised by?
Look, I think it's hard to see any of those things. Definitely not. They won't go. I think as we move forward, I'm with Esther and what she said there. Like, it's hard for us to plan too far out. But I think as we sort of see, I don't think shopping will go back to the way it was, both in store or online, anytime soon. I think sort of the number that gets floated about is about 10% of people say they'll never shop. They don't think they'll ever shop retail the same again. I think that giving customers the choice and allowing them to feel comfortable and safe is a really important thing for us. So the choice on how they want to shop is really important. And I think there's a question there about us only just rolling out our e-commerce before COVID. And that's true. We actually accelerated the rollout for delivery and then into New Zealand right at the start of this period. So I think offers like the drive and collect one, where you can have contactless, I think that will remain. I think things that make shopping quicker and easier. So our product finder app that we launched during this time, that allows you to sort of understand where the product is in the store, taking away one of the key pain points, but also again making customers feel safe and a bit in control of their own shopping, is definitely a thing that will stay. But I think also the idea that people are going to do more projects around their home, whether that be sort of some big ones, but also those small sort of on-trend projects. I think that's something that's going to remain. The more time we spend in the home, the more we're going to want to make it our own.
So what, I guess there's some obvious things, but what sort of, I guess, interesting products have gone crazy over the last 6 months?
Yeah, whilst we wouldn't talk to individual sort of sales, it has been some interesting ones. As we were all panic buying everything at the supermarket, we needed somewhere to store the toilet paper. So storage was something that we saw early on. Definitely gardening and growing your own. So people, and I think there was a double-edged thing there. There's concern over supply, but also people wanting to know exactly what they were putting into their mouths and where it come from. But painting, we've sort of talked a little bit about painting before as a way to individualize your home, but yeah, definitely painting as a project. And I think that's probably noticing the things that are wrong, as well as sort of saying, look, here's a really simple, quick and easy project that we can do to really freshen up an area that, rather than the 2 hours a day we're spending, we're now spending sort of 8, 9, 10 hours a day in that room. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I'm just wondering if there's, like, if tradespeople want to advertise on real estate going forward, because, you know, everyone will possibly, if they're not experts in renovating, need some help to, you know, give it an extra lick of paint or tighten some things up. So maybe that's the next wave. On that point, Batesy, I guess you've probably seen, you know, you deal with a lot of different clients in different stages of economic woe or wonderment. How have you been, I guess, trying to manage that wave as we've seen, you know, home renovations go up, possibly some of the development market go down, you know, planning for how that, I guess, from an advertiser, but also content point of view?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gai. I mean, look, at REA, as most people on the call probably know, we've got sort of 4 key sales markets. So obviously the residential, developer, commercial, and then the area that I look after, which is media. And we're quite an agile sales team, so we can flex as and when required. I think, you know, a really good example of that is when we pivoted, when we first went into COVID and there was challenges particularly with the restrictions in New South Wales and then more aggressively down here in Melbourne. We launched sort of new digital products, whether that be digital auctions, digital OFIs, and with a huge uptake in that space. So, you know, moving forward to, you know, to what Sarah said, we don't really know what the future holds. I mean, you know, I'm sitting here like every Melburnian praying that Sunday Dan gives me my freedom back. At least a 5K, please, Dan. But, you know, we're going to have to wait and see how that goes. But we just continue to see that digital innovation at REA is at the forefront. And actually, I think what we really saw is that one of the things we're really proud about is that we were able to move super quick in this space. And actually, we kind of reflected on this thinking, actually, well, pre-COVID, we probably weren't moving as quick as this. Why now? And actually what it's done is given us really good muscle memory to realize that we can act super quick to help our customers, to help their customers, and equally to help, you know, media agencies like Initiative, and equally working close and fast with a business like Bunnings should they want to get a message out there. So that's been really good. And obviously all of these things that we've done have really continued to drive the audience gaze. So yeah, I think the last 6 months, our audience has just gone from strength to strength. Now over 12 million people visiting each month. And the app's the big one, right? We know that people are using that to search and look at property, and the app's sort of probably, I think it was across September, had 50 million launches, which is over 40% up year on year. So we've just got to continue to digitally innovate. And the other thing I just mentioned is on the sort of e-commerce or click and collect area, that shoppable content is something that we're really working on in the background as a media team. We want to obviously make sure that if consumers want to buy product, that it's quick and easy, almost 2 steps, 2 clicks to purchase, rather than sending them a you know, a merry-go-round to try and acquire that product. So it's all about, for me, simplicity for that consumer as well.
Yeah, we've been talking about shoppable content for, I think, 10 years and never quite cracked it. So I think you're right. The last 6 months, you know, have shown us we can do a lot more, a lot quicker. But I think we'd all like a little bit of a break soon. So I think we can do things slow as well at some point. Before we wrap up, I just love from each of you on the panel, and I know it's going to be hard to sort of surmise in one sentence, really. I mean, what, I guess, innovation or trend change that you imagine's coming next year are you most excited about in this space? Batesy, let's start with you.
Yeah, look, I think for us, there's a few bits and pieces. I mean, the strategy that we work on with our media team is to really focus on sort of verticals that align to that property journey. You know, the obvious ones you've heard today in terms of utilities, retailers, etc. Auto is another one that we can get insights into people buying different, considering different models at different stages of the move. I think, though, the big thing that we're really focused on is this movers research and rolling it out to market. We've got a bit of it out in market to our key customers. We're now going to really hit the market with it, and we're really looking to partner up with businesses around shaping how we build and solve for the product in this space. So that's going to be a really big area. And I think more and more brands are starting to work with us on a more longer term approach using that research. And actually, I always say to my team around building utility and functionality on the site. So it's about, for me, real deep and true integration. I know a lot of media owners will spruik that and talk to that. But for me, it's about solving and developing a product that actually, at the end of the day, is selling units or products. That's essentially what our jobs are. So renovating and decorating is a really big, exciting area, as is the shoppable content game.
Okay, fantastic. A true media owner giving me more than I asked for. Sarah, I'll get you to meet the brief. That's what agencies do, right? 1 or 2 sentences of what you're most excited about.
Well, I've actually been through this process in COVID of buying a house and going through this journey. And one thing that I did pick up from the research was I thought it was fascinating about the electricity. I literally did it the day before and I'm like, fingers crossed it'll be on. So within that sort of vein, I'm putting it out there. There's actually a real need for augmented reality in this space. I think it's where it actually works. So, you know, like how IKEA, you can transform your room, you know, with Dulux, with different paint colors. I think that's really, it's actually great utility that you can use. You know, we've tried to do augmented reality with so many things and it doesn't quite fit. But I think, you know, in-home decorating, furniture, that makes sense to me. So I'm going to put it, I know augmented reality is quite a few years old, but that's where I see the benefit.
Beautiful.
The return of the QR code, SJ.
Keith, are you going to listen to your agency? Is it all about AR next year? Or what are you?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because 2 days ago we actually launched our first AR app, which is for outdoor living products. So it's small at the moment. It's got 50 products on there, but it allows you to pick some of the outdoor settings and barbecues, put them into your environment and sort of see what they look like. So, SJ, if you haven't already, get onto that one. But as I said, first step, no, I think for sure we'll definitely listen to that. I think the ability to continue to innovate, to remain relevant and to look after customers is the thing I'm excited about. And there's no doubt that digital is going to play a really big part in that. And with the shift to more online, the ability to sort of understand our customers and where they're at in their journey, and to really continue to just be very relevant to them and to deliver the messages and the content and the things they want that's relevant and exciting. So yeah, that's
beautiful. Thank you all for your time today, including Kat and John. We will share this recording with everyone probably around next Tuesday. Everyone will get a link. We'll share the slides that we can share. And you know where to get the others if you need them. I think REA's had enough plugs there, but they'll be available. Next week, we've got a slightly different format. So it's our Measure Up week, which is normally our big full day measurement conference. But we're going to send a registration link up there, but we've got 25 different experts. Sorry, let me pull this up. Who are talking about ad effectiveness, research, and data, and everything in between. So please tune into that. So I've got 3 separate mornings of different themes. Have a look at the website, all the details are there. But you know, incredibly knowledgeable people who are spending time interrogating what's working for marketers. So hopefully you'll tune in, and thank you again for everyone today. And I hope that Dan does give you some freedom, if it's safe to do so, on Sunday. Go crazy. We want to see posts of you like dancing in the street.
Carnival time, I think it might be.
Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.